What's going on, guys? It is me, Tyson the Trainer, back with another podcast for you. Now, this week I do have a guest on. He has been on before, but I'm bringing him back again. And the reason I want to bring him back on is because I was at the conference the other week and I thought, you know what? More people need to fucking know about this, because the amount of people that ask me about what nutrition course should I be doing, or they're telling me about something that another course they're doing, and I'm like, why are you not doing SNA? So I'm bringing on Alex Thomas. Alex, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, bro. Thanks for having me.
Mate, glad to have you back on. And it was just funny. We were just talking about the other day. I was like, I need to get you back on because there's just so much, I know, kind of bullshit out there at the moment with regarding certificates and study, or people not knowing what to do. And, like, I thought that people know what I've done and where I've studied, but it seems like they're not, because they're always still asking me questions. So I was like, if I have a podcast, at least we have the answer, what everyone needs to know.
That's it, man. One place to refer people, right? So this is going to be the source of truth for the next 18, 24 months until we update this, right?
100%. It'll just be like, follow this link, go listen to this, and you'll get all the information you need.
That's it. So that's why we're here. Yeah, because, mate, like I'm in the same sort of position as you, except we sort of get a lot more of these questions because this is what we do for a living, which is sort of like we were talking about it just before. What's that average? I'm just going to work it out. So we've had, in 15 months, there's been about 4,000 inquiries. So what's that per week? That's a lot. That's probably like, I'm going to guess it's about 60. So yeah, 63.
Oh, mate, close guess.
62 to 63 a week. So we get a lot of inquiries. And there's a lot to this, right? I think sort of the first thing is a lot of people from the outside looking in, right? We're just a course. But as you know, because you've had a look behind the curtain with our day-to-day operations, what we do, you met the team, see the staff. Because of our relationship, you see a lot of stuff. We say it, and you hear me say it a lot anyway, is just that, but like obviously you've seen the mechanics to sort of back it up, but it's like we're a professional body and professional association first and foremost. So what we care about is establishing the practices of the profession and then ongoing regulation and maintenance of it. Part of what we do as a body is like part of the establishment of the standards is, hey, there's a bit of education that we need to provide a bunch of people in the market, a bunch of professionals in the industry who haven't done these 12 subjects of competency that are required in order to register and practice. So it might be a personal trainer enrolling in the whole program, which is the certificate, because they've got to do the whole thing. It might be a uni grad from the exercise or sports science program that does, 2/3 of the program, or a clinical nutrition person who does half the program or 2/3 of the program, depending on what subjects were in their degree. Just so that way we can tick the boxes and get them registered, so that way they're actually then recognized to practice, right, and insured to practice. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's the big thing, is like we're registration first and foremost, and education from our end is really just looking to satisfy that criteria. And that's why the cert exists. You don't have to do the cert. There's about 400 or 500 people that come through our certificate program, or newly registered people every year. And about 5 of them don't do any form of study with us, 5 to 10, but they've done undergrads in X science and postgrads in dietetics. So they are actually like dietitians as well, or like clinical nutritionists. But they've done the exercise science and exercise physiology, as well as the clinical nutrition and all the applied nutrition stuff as well. And there's just a small amount of those graduates every year. So there's about 5 to 10. They don't need to study with us. They just register with us, and they're eligible to register straight away because they've done the 12 subjects of competency from there.
Yeah. Okay. And so I guess, like, with what I'm trying to think first, like, obviously, with Sports Nutrition Association, do you have to, because like I think a lot of people think sports nutritionists, I don't want to be a sports nutritionist, I just want to work with general population, right? Why, like, should they still go and see you? Because at the end of the day, I tell people, go and do SNA regardless of who you want to work with, because you guys are not, it's not just for people who are going to work with athletes. Like, nutrition applies to everyone.
Yeah. Sports nutrition, so that people can understand, it's performance, body composition, and then weight management. So clinical nutrition is typically the treatment, intervention, and prevention of chronic disease. So that's where you're looking at like health outcomes with people to treat, improve, or prevent that stuff. And depending on the amount of study you've done in the program you've done, whether it's clinical human nutrition or whether it's dietetics, that will dictate how much medical nutrition therapy is associated with your practices. But if you're looking at performance, body composition manipulation, or weight management, for the majority of people, that's sports nutrition. And I think people tend to get a bit caught up in the name. Oh, like I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, like at the end of the day, the names around like clinical nutrition and sports nutrition, it's really just there from like an insurance product policy perspective, right? So if you're doing clinical nutrition, you're working clinically, there's health stuff, there's degrees and spectrums of medical nutrition therapy associated with it. So you're exposing yourself to a lot more risk as it relates to someone's health in that area because of who you're working with. So your insurance product needs to reflect that. Whereas the insurance product for sports nutrition includes like those three primary things, right? And I would say if you're working with Gen Pop, the majority of what Gen Pop wants is body composition or weight management.
Yep, 100%.
I would say probably like 1 in 4 to 5 people want performance stuff, but it's really just body composition and weight management.
And I think with you saying that, like, again, you're learning, obviously, the key principles of nutrition through this course anyway, so you can help that Gen Pop person. But then if occasionally you do get someone, who is who's someone who plays sports, whatever it is, you have that knowledge in order to actually help them become a better athlete too, even though it may not be your main focus of helping people. Like myself, I don't train a lot of sports clients. Like I have a few, but a large majority are Gen population.
Yeah. I think you're the pinup for like profession, like legitimately registered, and like I'm on your podcast. So like this isn't like some, hey, I'm kissing Tyson's ass because I'm on his podcast scenario. It's just very convenient. Look, it's a good ass to kiss as well, but the reality is that I would say Tyson's probably the pinup for legitimately registered, openly accredited, or like someone that has a postgraduate diploma or higher qualification who's just nailing Gen Pop. Like if people are like, oh, I want to work with Gen Pop, and it tends to be this like reductionist thing where it's like, oh, I just want to work with Gen Pop, and it's like it's a lesser thing, or it's like, oh, I shouldn't be working with athletes. And I find it really funny. So you're the pinup for that. You don't underestimate the intricacies of Gen Pop, and I think people tend to like they use this reductionist thing where it's like, oh, it's only Gen Pop, and it's like, yeah. So they're less likely to follow the plan. They've got more lifestyle considerations. Their mums, dads, people with like hectic jobs, all this kind of stuff. Whereas an athlete tends to follow the plan really, really well. So if we're going to be a reductionist, let's assume that the reductionist side of things is on the athlete side, and they're like more disciplined, they're better at following it. And let's not understate, how complex Gen Pop can be, especially when you consider like 40% of the Gen Pop have some form of chronic disease consideration, right? So then you're working with some form of allied health specialists as well. So look, you're probably the pinup for it, but I think, if you're doing Gen Pop, you got to be looking at this, as a minimum. And I would say if you're doubling down, similar to you, like we've got our 3-year provisional period, but like you didn't wait that long. You were like, I'm going harder, right? And studied more probably within 12 months of doing the cert.
Yeah, as I was finishing up SNA, like I was already looking to go through the IOP, and I was like, what's the next step? Because I just think obviously, continuing education is always such an important thing. But even like, again, I've learned all this stuff about sports nutrition. I went to do an IOPN, and like, yeah, I have all this knowledge, which helps a little bit. But for the most part, like those fundamental things I learned in SNA is exactly what I need for Gen Pop. And again, because those little intricacies, because, there are going to be some very hard people to work with, and they may have certain issues you've got to kind of understand or think critically about. You're learning those skills in SNA to be able to think critically and go a little bit more in depth that could actually help you benefit a Gen Pop even more,
Exactly. And that's it. It's like, I think, man, yeah, like I think you're a great example of what it would look like to have a thriving business with Gen Pop in a, primarily online setting.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Like we of our inquiries every week, it's probably like 3 to 5 phone calls I have with people where they're like asking some like really, they've gone down some like crazy rabbit holes around like, oh, what am I actually covered for and stuff. And it's like, and they'll look at other things, right? So they'll be like, oh, do precision nutrition or do this and, do this like, integrative health coaches course or some shit like that. And, they'll sit there and be like, look, unless you're registering with a professional body with foot on the ground, and then unless whoever you're registering with provides you with insurance, that with the insurance that you're paying for, it says the activities that you're covered for exactly the same as like the services that you're providing, then you're not covered, right? So it's like there's a lot of things that need to happen. Step one is you complete it. Are you professionally registered? If yes, move on to the next one. Then it's like, are you insured? If yes, then step 3 is, what does your PDS, your product disclosure statement, actually say about your insurance? And for a lot of people, this is where, especially like fitness professionals who tend to do these short courses, rather than like uni grads, it's quite interesting that there tends to be a lot of resistance around there with their experience. And they're like, no, it's fine. And it's like, look, because there's a lot of like sneaky words and like terminology used in these PDSs, but basically it'll just say like you're a nutrition coach or you can provide advice or nutrition coaching advisor and all this kind of shit. And it's like, what it comes down to is when you look at the PDS, it's like that's no different to a personal trainer's insurance policy. All you can do is provide advice, nothing prescriptive. You can't be prescriptive. And you're providing advice around healthy eating, which sounds a lot like providing health advice around healthy eating within the nationally endorsed dietary guides, which is a personal trainer's scope of practice. Now, some of these programs will range from like, I don't know, $500 through to like $5-6 grand. Like they're more expensive than our certificate. But the reality is like, you're a nutrition advisor. They hide behind the term advice in there, and they hide behind like healthy eating and like you can counsel them and stuff. And it's like, that's not prescriptive. If you're being prescriptive, if you're providing macros, meal plans, meal plan examples, if you're saying, this is what I want you to do, and you're being direct with your service, you're not covered for that stuff. And for the majority, I was going to say, for the majority of people, like, you're probably not going to get in trouble. And it's probably not going to be your claim. But there's probably like, I did a podcast interview on my one back a while ago with Geordie, the fire dietitian. And he was like, it's probably like 1 in 1,000, maybe 1 in 10,000, but you just don't want to be that person because it's really, really, really expensive. And it's like, then you'll develop a reputation for that. And look, some people are more risk averse than others, and it is what it is. But like, it's funny because I'll be on these phone calls. I'll be like, if you wanted me to tell you that you're going to be covered for what you've got, I'm like, the answer is no, and I'm not going to tell you. And they get really butthurt about it. And I'm like, realistically, like even just looking at what they've taught you, I don't think it's sufficient for what you need to be, like what you need to know to do it. And like, this is just a blank statement for anyone listening who may have done these other programs. It's like, I don't care if you studied with us or you've gone to uni and done those subjects. All I'm saying is, I don't think you're qualified enough to be working with people unless you've done those 12 subjects in like to be working with people in those settings. Like just as a minimum, like these are the 12 subjects to be provisionally registered, right? So it's like, I would put to the point where I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. And it's like, if you can pass all of our 7 case studies first attempt, I will say, yep, you're sweet. And I will comp you registration and insurance for 12 months. But no one who's done those programs is passing them first go.
Yeah.
You've seen them. You know what they look like. They're not easy. They're not walks in the park. And a lot of people, I would say, we've got a stat because we've reviewed our last 12 months worth of assessments. And it's like, I think we have an average pass rate of first attempt of 8%. We include like free resubmissions for people, but it's like 8% of the people who go through. So less than, it's about 25 to 35 people of 400 plus pass the whole program the first time through.
And that's doing your program.
That's
right?
doing out.
Yeah. And you're saying like, again, if someone wants to come from the outside, do your case studies, yeah, sweet. Good luck to you.
150 of those are uni students or uni grads.
Yeah, right.
So like not even the uni grads and uni students are passing it. It's because it's like these case studies, like, I don't want to make people like freak out and think that they're like, oh, they're super, super hard. It's not super hard. It's just that they're very specifically applied to actually applying the foundational principles of exercise physiology with nutrition physiology, with applied nutrition, all in the one setting. And these are real world case studies. It's like, hey, you've got someone that's, can't consistently exercise in their week. They're yo-yo dieting. They have these risk factors. What do you what do you do with them? Their goal is weight loss. How do you approach that? And then here's the current evidence. Here's the current position statements on this stuff. How do you apply that evidence to that individual? And it's people, that's what the assessors are there for, and that's what the feedback's there for, is to help. You might think you know it, but it's like chances are you don't, and that's what we're here for. It's like it's a positive, humbling reframe for a lot of people, and it's good. As a result, we see better practitioners at the end of it than the beginning of it.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that about out of the first go, a lot of people do fail it, but it's also like that case study you just gave is a fucking perfect example of a normal person, and this is teaching you guys, like, for those of you who want to do this as a career, it's not just going to do another certificate. Like, people want to get it done. Oh yeah, I just want to get the certificate out of the way. It's really quick. Like, if you're going to make this your fucking career, you have to do the actual work, which is going to be required more than fucking 12 weeks to get certified, but also with that, it's like, people are failing and they're doing this and they're still failing, because it's like you have to apply critical thinking. You actually have to take time, and you're going to be struggling with clients all the time. Like, I have coaches message me, hey Tyson, look, I'm struggling with this one client at the moment. Here's they'll ask me a little bit, and I'm like, look, I'm happy to give advice, but it's like you have to be able to put that shit together for yourself, and that comes with education that's more than fucking 12 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever. Some of them. Clean health is like 2.5 weeks or something,
or like a self-paced 12 months. Like, what is that, mate? Like, when you look at the biggest bane of our existence lately is like the vast stuff that they're like saying, and so like they're like, oh, it's fine. You'll be a nationally recognized nutritionist and stuff, and they're just capitalizing on the fact that nutritionist isn't a controlled term at the moment. And then it's like, oh, do our things. It's like, mate, half their subjects are just useless. Like, I'm 100%. I'll be like, half of those subjects are not helpful at all whatsoever. They're not covering energy availability. Like you can go on our website and look at our subjects, right? I would be like, anyone who if Vash just copied our subjects and reached out to us and we're like, hey, because we have other institutes that we work with. So HPI in New Zealand, we just give them our curriculum. These are our subjects. This is the time spent. This is how it's assessed. These are the learning outcomes. NAMS in America, National Academy of Metabolic Sciences, we just give it to them. And then we're like, sweet, we get registered members then. They're doing the assessment for us.
Yeah.
Makes it easier for us, right? Helps us grow the profession. So like we've got organizations that we work with, but it's like if VAST program was like the same 12 subjects and then it was like, and then they were assessed in a similar capacity, mate, it wouldn't be a problem. But the problem is they're just like pumping people through saying you got 12 months, you can do it at your own self-paced work. Half the subjects are useless, especially in terms of like actually like understanding metabolism, understanding energy availability, understanding like detailed nutrition physiology, understanding in-depth exercise physiology, understanding the biochemistry of like how food becomes fuel and is utilized in your body depending on your energetic environment. It's not there. Then you look at like the business and service provision side of things, it's lacking severely. So it's like, once you give all these people these tools, how are they then going to apply it to be able to do that? And I've had conversations with people where they're like, oh, I'm doing this and blah, blah, and I just don't know if I can pay, I've paid $5,000 or $6,000 with them and I don't know how I can pay, $4,000 with you guys and then do it. And I'm like, well, sounds like they haven't given you like any tools for your business either. Because like our grads, you've seen the numbers. Like, let's not even focus on the full-time member wage, because that's exceptionally high when you compare that to dietitians, exercise physiologists, exercise scientists. We're way higher than them, and our turnover of full-time people is way lower than those as well. Let's just look at the part-time and casual people. The mean part-time income is 44,000. The median is 20. I think it's 25 to 28,000. We have more people complete that survey. This is people working 6 to 11 hours, not more than 12, making that kind of money. Like the thing is like, this is the ultimate side gig. And so like our members like are doing extremely well inside. Like they don't have to go full time, but it's funny. Like I'm speaking to these people and they're like, oh, this is what they're doing for their job. And they're like, like, oh, I just don't know if I have it. And I'm like, man, if this is my sole career, this is like how I put bread on the table for my family. I'm making sure that the piece of paper that says that I'm insured says the activities that I'm doing on it next to the dollar value that I'm insured for. And that's the problem with a lot of these things. And it's like the reason why they don't get it is because the subjects aren't sufficient. No underwriter is going to be like, oh, yeah, like you've looked at like physical activity trends in the population. Cool. Like, yeah, you're now like covered to write meal plans for people. No. Like you're not. That's the unfortunate reality. You need to be like, applied. And this is the thing. It's like these 12 subjects and the minimums required to just get provisional insurance and registration.
It's just funny. I just think it comes back to, people are always like trying to look for the fastest way to get to that goal. And like, we talk about like related to weight loss. People want to get to weight loss as fast as possible. People want to be qualified as fast as possible. And it's like, and like you said, like if this is your career, which again, like for me, I'm like, this is my career. This is my little trajectory. Just like if someone's going to be a lawyer or whatever the fuck it is, you're on a trajectory, right? And I'm like, I've got to do my study. I'm going to look at the best. And that's why, like, I asked Mackenzie Baker before I started SNA, I was like, hey, mate, I saw you did this. Just wondering, what do you think about it? Because he's someone I respected and who was already in that industry, the career. And I was like, okay, cool. I know my next stepping block. And then it's not like, oh, yeah, sweet. I'll do this for 3 months and, I'll be a fucking nutritionist. Like there was movement up, but it's also like, if this is going to be my career, like you said, I want to fucking make sure that the rug's not going to get pulled out for me because I'm very, very risk averse, I'm like,
yeah, you and I like that.
Like 1%, I'm like, I don't want to be that 1%.
Yeah, because like this is the thing, like if this is actually going to be your career and profession, you want to make like you don't like this is you and I share this opinion, right? If this is going to be your career and profession, you don't want to be settling for the minimum. Then if you're actually earning a good income from it, you definitely do not want to be settling for the minimum. Like if you're earning good income from this and it's your career long term, like you and I are the same. We're like, oh, okay, insurance $600 a year for the minimum. Probably gonna get the $1,000 option for my insurance.
Yep.
Like the moment that I was doing over 130K in revenue, which again basically sits at our full-time median and mean averages for our members. So like the moment I'm like, nah, give me the top insurance. I don't want to be thinking about this stuff. I don't want to be sleeping with one eye open type thing. You and I are similar to this. Not everyone's like that, and that's cool. But like I think you don't want to settle for you don't want to be settling for shortcuts with education. You don't want to be settling for minimums with it. Like if you think, 12 subjects, then I'll be an accredited sports nutritionist. Yeah, great. Like, but you got to be thinking degree or GDip as your minimum. You got to be thinking, and like we have like the whole business and service provision unit, like one of the 12 subjects. It's this unit is the biggest because we want to make sure that you're actually succeeding as a professional. Like our goal is not to sell courses. Our goal, and if we're doing well and we're meeting our goals, we are growing our member base and our members are doing well as professionals. We have members earning really good livings with a low turnover rate. So for us, we're looking at 10 to 20% every 3 years. It's not 10 to 20%. 20 to 30% every 3 years is our goal with turnover. We're significantly under that at the moment, and we'll continue to do that way until we probably hit about 5,000 professional members globally, I'd say. Then the numbers will probably get a bit closer to that. And then we want them earning really good incomes and succeeding in practice. The average dietitian failure rate is 70 to 80% failing within the first 12 months. The average fitness professional rate is a 65% failure rate within the first 6 months. We don't see that with us, with our grads, with our members. Even like the people who are sports scientists who have done all these sports nutrition subjects and come through and study with us and become members and practicing, they're like, whoa, this has set me up. And they're adding, because they're already working in the industry, they're just adding another 35 grand to their bottom line. They're already openly accredited. Then they've just got an element of flexibility to their business now that they just didn't have. And, for our end, like that's good. We just want people succeeding long term. And so, look, if we're selling courses, great. I don't really care. I want to have, at the end of this year, we'll be probably just over 1,000 active compliant members, depending on how many people are like really compliant from CPD. We're about to see, so that'll be interesting. But say at the end of the year, we got 1,000, over 1,000 internationally. Like our goal is to be 1,500 to 2,000 next year. The year after that, 2,500 from there. The year after that, 3.5 to 4. Like that's our goal. It's not to sit there and sell you courses and be like, you're going to be so good from this course or anything like that. Like in that unit, the business unit and service provision unit, we're like, this is like what you need to expect for your first 6 months if you're just practicing. These are all the hurdles and challenges you are going to be encountering. And like, we don't want you studying, like, while we're saying, hey, you need, like, don't settle for the cert. We don't want you investing in further study until you're at least doing this much revenue part-time or this much revenue full-time. But once you're at those points and you're pretty comfortable, that's when we need you to double down.
Yeah. And
so, like, we need them to have the, further, more in-depth education from there. And it's like, the thing is like, some people want to hear, you were talking about the shortcut mentality before, and some people just want to hear it, right? Like, oh, yep, study with us. And yeah, you like, oh, this is the one that they say lately is, you'll be legally recognized, right? You're going to be legally recognized to, like, write meal plans and do nutrition and stuff. And it's like, guys, like, there might be some trigger warnings in this. Probably should have said it at the beginning as well, but it's like, there is no law that says you cannot do that right now. Like, anyone off the street could call themselves a nutritionist. Like, the title is not protected, and it is not illegal to call yourself a nutritionist and just start charging people for meal plans.
Which we see do fucking already.
Yeah, like, so many people do anyway. Like, depending on how negligent you are with it and how screwed up people get, you may get charged in certain states in Australia now. Actually, you will. Depending on how negligent you are. Like, there is a precedence now where it's a $10,000 to $20,000 fine, 1 to 2 years in jail. But you have to really screw some people up. But like, if someone, for instance, I was like charging $100 for a nutrition program, $100 a week or something like that, and someone was like, oh, I didn't really like it, they didn't get hurt or anything like that, and they asked for a refund, like, there's no like nutrition police or anything like that. Like, there's no laws that say that you can't do this stuff. It's not a protected title. It's not that stuff. So people exploit the shit out of it. And right now, there's a lot of course providers being like, become legally recognized and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, of course they can say that because there's no law that says otherwise. What matters is what your insurance says. So that way, if something happens and someone gets hurt or you screw someone up and it happens more than what you would believe, you obviously, you get a sneak peek to sort of what happens and you hear about it as I hear about it because I tell you because of our relationship. But it's like, it happens more than you think. And like, you just don't want that. You don't want that shit. Like, because they'll get access to your house. If you have a property in your name, whatever's in your savings account, they'll get access to. Even if you don't have the money, there'll be a court order that says you have to pay back $50,000. Like, this shit happens. But it has to come out of your personal pocket if you don't have that insurance policy. But what matters is, are you recognized by a legitimate professional association that governs and regulates the practices of that profession? It's first and foremost, because then if you've done everything that association says to do and claims is best practice, then you are not going to be held liable for negligence, and your ability to then be exposed for for like criminal charges, misrepresentations, fraud, all that kind of stuff, then is significantly like reduced, if not completely eliminated.
Yeah.
Then the next one is, if your insurance actually covers those activities. So, and like, a lot of people are like, oh, I've got insurance for this. And it's like, cool. That insurance company is owned by the same company that provides that education. that also owns the council that regulates, which I'm pretty sure is borderline illegal in this country. I have to sign a form saying that like SNA gets I personally and SNA gets no kickback for insurance policies that are sold to our members every single year, and I have to go through voluntary audits. So like, the thing is like, there's entities and organizations out there engaging in like this fully like, borderline fully illegal activities that like there are clear laws about, and it's just like it's just their risk profile, it's their risk appetite, right? They're just happy to, because they see an opportunity to, sell money, make money selling courses, right? And it's like, unfortunately, it's sort of, isn't that just the metaphor for where the fitness industry is at the moment, though? It's like, people want shortcuts. People are selling, get shredded in 4 weeks' time and stuff, and there's a market for it, right? So I guess if you're listening to this and you're thinking, you know, like, oh, why does this happen? It's like, well, it's the same things you tell your clients as well, guys, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like it's buyer beware as well. Like if that sounds too good to be true, or if that sounds like if that path of least resistance sounds like it's pretty easy and it's like, damn, it's a pretty good way, and then I'll be legally recognized. It's like, well, chances are you're probably not. Like we don't say you're legally recognized. We're just like, you'll be recognized and you'll be able to call yourself an accredited sports nutritionist because like we own those trademarks, and we're just about to finish up our certification mark authorization process with the ACCC, you know, so the Consumer Complaints Commission and all that stuff. So like the ACCC, part of the Australian government, if anyone infringes that, then they fine that person. And so like then we go through more audits every year with the ACCC from the association side of things within Australia. And so like we're going through that. So like it'll be fully protected, and it's a quality mark. It's like, you know, when you see the kangaroo with the Australian made, it's like it's a quality mark. It means that any person calling themselves an accredited sports nutritionist in the relevant levels has met the standards required for both education, experience, and conduct in order to refer to themselves as that. You know, but other people are like, yeah, you can just call yourself a nutritionist, you can call yourself a nutrition coach, you can do your 3-week thing. And, you know, mate, it's just like, you know, hopefully you don't screw someone up. And at some point, hopefully you get to the point where you're like, hey, this is a viable career that I like doing. And I, at some point, value getting to a better level.
What I think you just said right there, which is really important, which I don't know why it just clicked for me, but like there's a difference with what you said between legal versus illegal, right? Like, you know, sort of legal, but insurance, like I don't care. Like you guys are like, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to get in trouble if I do this. Like who's going to get me? Well, if a client is going to come back and get you and you are not insured, like that is where you are going to get fucked. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like, doesn't matter that you call yourself a nutritionist. It's like, you don't have insurance. Just like, you know, like I get a tradie to come and do it and they're not a fucking qualified tradie, guess who's getting screwed over, you know?
Exactly, man. And the thing is like, you might pay money for insurance and they say you're insured, but the people that you're going through don't have an office in the country or region that you're operating, right? So like we have regional offices in Asia, the USA, Europe, New Zealand. Like we have satellite organizations and entities set up there so we can have these policies recognized on the ground there, because they vary from country to country, right? Like I know people being like paying money out because they're registered with some like international integrative health college in like, I don't know, it's like Phoenix or some shit. And they're like, yeah, I'm insured. And it's like, that is written for the state of Phoenix, because in America it's state by state.
Yeah.
Not national. It does not hold up here. For one. And then there's other people and it's like, oh, it's an Australian one and stuff. And then like, yeah, like I'm insured. And it's like, it literally says on there, advice. You're an advisor. That is not like, the thing about advice is general. It is not prescriptive. If you're charging for a service to give someone any nutritional help that isn't sitting there being like, hey, tell me how you felt about how you ate when you ate that meal and how did it make you feel? Perhaps we should add some more vegetables in. Let's have a look at the Australian dietary guides and see if we can get some more grains in, or like look at these sources of fats or these sources of dairy, right? Let's limit your alcohol, drink some more water, right? If you're doing anything that's like, all right, I want you to eat 20 more grams of carbohydrates. I need you to get rid of the steak and you're going to start having chicken breast, whatever it is, that's prescriptive, right? That's not general advice.
Yeah.
And so like if you've got advisor, advice, counsel, whatever it is in there, you're not covered for it. And the way to test this is be like, send said companies an email and actually ask them to put it in writing and be like, if I want to check in with people and adjust their protein by 30 grams a day.
Or give them macros.
Give them macros, or I want them to take this supplement, or I want them to follow this meal plan. Am I covered for that? Can I do that? And if they come back and say like that, I promise you they will come back and say no, or if they're doing the right thing ethically, or they will come back and say some convoluted bullshit, basically saying that you have to give them the guides. Yes, you can, but it needs to be done in this way, which is basically being an advisor and coaching within the guides. Whereas if you come to us and you talk to our insurers, and this is the whole thing, right? Like association and body first. So we work with the insurers to get like a legitimate policy for our professional members, the insurers are like, you can do whatever you want within the realm of sports nutrition and you're covered for it. You've got professional indemnity up to $1 million. You got public liability up to 10 million if you pick the entry level programs, and then you can go from there. If you want to add malpractice, you can add malpractice. And the word on there that is on the policy is sports nutrition. It's not advice, advisor, nothing. And then it's all the activities that fall within sports nutrition, which they list, and it's meal plans, nutrition programming, macros, you name it. It's all there. Supplements, it's all in there.
You should put that on your stories, what you just said, and like see how many people, like legit, because like some people like, you know what, maybe I should. You're like, because it'll get people thinking. And the amount of emails that have come back saying somehow it's a no, you know, in some convoluted way, like you said, people are probably going to be fucking shocked. You know,
I would say so, man. Hey, I've had people call me up and be like, I asked them, man, I can't believe this. This is like, you know, they feel like they're like unpacking this like massive conspiracy. And I'm like, dude, it's just like, it's the industry. Like, just remember, there's chiropractors cracking necks of babies.
What?
Like they're sitting there just going, you know, like, man, you know how low in the low in the pecking order, like like half like dodgy, you know, scheme insurance, like misrepresenting insurance and cover for nutrition professionals is in like the pecking order of the negligence in health stuff that we're seeing in the country at the moment. It's like, you know, it might feel like it's like this massive conspiracy that you're uncovering, but it's not. It's just like, unfortunately, it is the current landscape of the industry. There's a lot of dodgy stuff happening in the industry, and there's a lot more dodgy, negligent stuff happening in practice, right? Like there's the GPs that have like, you know, have sold their souls to the bikie gangs and, you know, and bodybuilders, and they're selling all the gear and thyroid and all this kind of shit, you know, like, and they're just palming out fucking grams and grams of Sustanon 250 to people and stuff. Like those people are more of a priority right now for the government to address and the authorities to address than these others. However, you know, from time to time, there's claims that come up and they're pretty bad and they're in this industry, and, you know, and they get found out. And so, you know, the big one recently was in Australia was that Norman Lowe guy in Adelaide who you know, presented himself as a dietitian and a member of ours, and he wasn't. And so now that's the current precedence, right? It's a $10,000 to $20,000 fine for misrepresenting to be a professional member of these associations. And I could lie and say, hey, it's 50-50. And if you refer to yourself as an accredited sports nutritionist and you refer to yourself as a dietitian, they're just as bad. But the reality is it's probably like 90-10 in the government's eyes. Like they don't really care that he called himself a sports nutritionist. They really cared that he called himself a dietitian.
Yeah.
But the problem is he lied and misrepresented himself about being both to like garner, I guess, like professional credibility. And, you know, and then subsequently told people to stop taking their medications, drink 10 liters of water a day and all this other like, you know, crazy shit. And he's just a bodybuilder that sat there and was like, I know nutrition, I've prepped before. And it's like, and like, you know what it's like, man, anyone can get someone in shape. You just put them in a fucking deficit, tell them to eat protein and lift weights.
Yep.
You're going to get in shape, right? It's just the varying degrees of how fucked you're going to be throughout that process, right? And if you do it in an evidence-informed manner that's also mindful of your health and mindful of your psychological health, you're going to come out of the other end, probably maintain a bit of good shape and, you know, feel really good and have a healthy relationship with food and not have fucked your body up. But in terms of like peak condition, you know, day of peak condition, you're probably going to look pretty similar.
Yeah.
It's just how you come out the other side that's different, right? And so that's what happens. Like these people do these extreme things and they come out and they feel like shit. And, you know, there's women who are like, oh, I haven't had a menstrual cycle for 3 years, you know, and it's affecting their fertility because they don't care about getting up in a bikini anymore like they did when they were 27. They're looking at having kids now at 30, really fucking with their ability to do that.
Yep. And that's also like, yeah.
I was going to say, and that's where these claims are starting to come from, right? Where it's like, all right, the liability period is 7 years. So like you can get like, you know, you can be working with someone who's a 24-year-old and then they're married and 28 and want to have kids. And then 4 years later, and you can be like, oh, I'm in the clear. It's like, no, you're not. Until that person's 31, 32.
Yep.
You are not in the clear.
And it's funny because all these people are trying, like all these coaches are trying to get other people quick results. And it's like, again, you're trying to give someone a result quickly because you probably want their money and you want them to obviously, preach about using it in a bigger business. Is it worth that expense where if, let's say, again, 2 years down the line, especially like all these people who do comp prep, right? They go do their comp prep. They do it once. They go, like you said about that guy, oh, I'm a coach now. Okay, cool. Go pretend that you're a coach or whatever it is. Someone might not get you for insurance now or whatever it is, but remember, you got 7 years where if you have fucked someone up so bad, they can come back and it is all on you.
Yeah.
So is it worth you getting someone quick results or doing it unsafely? Whether you're like, let's say you're not an unethical person, do you want to lose all the fucking money at some point then for being a scumbag? Like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, man. But like, you like we said, you and I are just not very risk averse. Okay, so let's do you want to just hit me with like frequently asked questions that come at you? So we've just got this reference.
One thing I want to kind of get an idea. Well, like people say, oh, it might, it's $4,000 investment, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. It could be 6, man, depending on the payment plan. It could be 6.5 because like we've got a payment option that gives them almost 2 years to pay it off, which is super risky for us because we take all the risk, like all the education and staff outlay, compliance, wages. That's all done in the first 6 to 7 months.
Mm-hmm. So you're taking on that risk for them if they want to do the payment plan. Let's say it's $6.5 grand, right?
Yeah.
What did you just say part-time people make? Tell me again.
Yeah, dude. Like on average, like so the median is 28,000 now, and the mean is 44,000. Okay. And that's 6 to 11 hours a week.
Cool. Let's say 28,000, you're doing 11 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
You're still doing your other job. Let's say you're doing 28 hours of the other job. So you're still working under 40 hours a week total. You're making a good income, so you should be able to pay it off, ideally. Yeah. But in saying that, people start to think about, oh, man, the money for that and then insurance. So let's add on insurance to that, which you
$1,000 Rego insurance, $1,000 a year. Yeah, 128.
Yep. So there you go, right? So you're also paying your $1,000. You are paying that off through your course or your other job like that. And if you break that down and look at weekly numbers of what that means for you revenue-wise to get clients, it's sweet fuck all for you guys to make the money back. You invest in the course. It's not a fucking payment. It's an investment, correct?
Big time. And the thing is now is like we say, we have a requirement now that a minimum of 25 initial consultations must be conducted and completed before they finish it. That's one of the assessment pieces that the assessors, and the thing about our program is our assessors must be still successful, openly accredited practicing practitioners. So they work not full time for us. They're permanent, but they're, 25, 30 hours a week that they do for us, and they get paid very, very well. It's a very highly sought after position, but these people are stupidly qualified. Like they have bachelor's, masters, whatever, but they're still practicing, right? So our assessors are way higher than the mean and median in the part-time. And the range that we had for part-time was up to 130,000 was the peak that someone was earning part-time, right? Now
part-time, wow.
Yeah. And the minimum though was 6,000, right?
Yep.
For someone part-time. So that's probably a provisionally accredited member, part-time hours, probably undercharging, feeling a bit underqualified, bit of imposter syndrome and stuff. But I love this data because then I can understand where they're sort of coming from. But our assessors are on average working 9 hours a week and generating 55,000 in revenue for the 9 hours. And so you're getting advice on practice and practicing and how to conduct consults from people who are doing that. And I say like I was the social proof when I was still working. I was doing 3.5, 4 grand a week, working part-time, 25 hours a week. And that's how I set all this up and set myself up and got into the property market and stuff while I was doing all the S&A stuff, right? I don't practice anymore. Our social proof are our assessors, right? So here's these practitioners doing this amount of money. Like Matt's doing 8 hours a week, 65.
Yeah, right.
So, but like he's the head assessor. He's been practicing for over 10 years and stuff. But like that's Matt. It's like good on him. But so it's like you're getting advice on how to practice and run a business like this and be a service provider in this industry, not from people who couldn't make it, but from people who have made it and are still killing it. They just value giving back as well. And like we pay them well accordingly because guess what? That's what they're earning on the outside as well. So that's the thing. It's like when you're going through, what we want from you is that you're working with 4 to 8 people and charging between $20 to $50 a week. We don't want you charging more than $50 a week because you're not worth it because you're a student. But ideally, you're working with more. You got people on the books. You're saying, hey, 20, 30 bucks a week. I'm going to work. You want to get 8 people, right? And you're just working with them to get the reps in. And you say, this is my fee when I'm a student. When I graduate, it's going to be 40, 50. And we give them the plan to do it, right? And just over half of the people who go through now are doing it, and the assessors are supporting them through it. So it's like, if you do the math, and let's just be conservative and say it's 6 times 30 or 6 times 20, right? So you're doing.
I thought you asked me the question.
No. Sorry. What's the math on that, Tyson? This is got to be TPD. So 6 times 20, it's $120, right? While you're studying. So, like, mate, you go through it. You pick the monthly option, which is, I don't know, $5,000 or something like that. The first monthly option. Don't do the 18-month one because it stings you too much. It's too risky for us. It's expensive for you. It doesn't make sense. Like, if you're going to do an option, do them like the first monthly option, but do the monthly option. It's like just over $5,000, right? You're doing $120 a week. You will have paid half of that off by the time that you've graduated, and the moment that you graduate, or like 2/3 of it off, to be honest. And by the time that you've graduated, then you've prepped everyone and you followed our system so that everyone's prices go up. And now, instead of it being $20 a week, it's 50. You've paid it off now into 3 weeks of practicing. Like money should not be on the table. I know money is important for a lot of people, but if you're looking at this from a career place, money should be off the table to a degree, and it should all be about how are you setting yourself up for success as a professional member and practitioner. And that's what we care about. So it's like when you're inquiring with us, we were talking about this beforehand, and it's like, man, we just want to have more conversations with people from the right frame. Like, they come in like, how much is it? How long does it take? And we're like, when do you want to be practicing by? And how do you want to practice? Like, money is like there's multiple payment options. Like, it is what it is. Money's there, time's there. It costs this much. We have these many assessment pieces and subjects that we have to teach you on. But when did you want to be practicing by, and what do you want your practice to look like? Because that's going to best inform us for when you should be doing it. And I think a lot of people need to sort of consider that a little bit more. And it's like, what does it look like, right? Like, when, some people wait for the perfect time, the perfect scenario. It's like, oh, it's got to be like this. I have to have this much in the bank, and I have to have this much available time. And it's like, when you're a practitioner, you're probably never going to have that scenario. So it's probably a good idea to learn how to study, take feedback on, troubleshoot, work with people, do some initial consults when it's not a perfect scenario.
Yep.
Obviously, if it's like crazy hectic and you got some crazy things going on, don't do it, for sure. We'll work out a better time. But if you've got some challenges, I think it's a good time, because then you learn to thrive and survive when things aren't perfect. So that way, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, when you're a practitioner and you're full time and shit hits the fan, you just know how to roll with it. You know how to troubleshoot. You know how to take feedback on. You know how to problem solve.
Yep. Bro, unless you're a single parent, like, you can learn to also organize your life, because like, again, trying to make time for study, the amount of time, like, everyone says, I don't have time for something. Yeah, you always find the time for something that you want to prioritize right now. And most people fucking prioritize Netflix. I don't have time. But you have time to watch 3.5 hours of Netflix, right? It's like, you go to 2 hours of Netflix, you study 1 hour every night, ideally more, but everyone can find the fucking time,
100%, man. Fuck, that is so funny. And it's so true. And the thing is, look, study's pretty boring. Like, don't get me wrong. But if you like this stuff, it's a bit better than studying something that you hate, right? If you have a general interest in this, it's actually pretty interesting and it's pretty cool. The other thing is, like, getting feedback from like people who are killing it. That's really cool as well, right? Like, it's like a big thing that we do with our students is, like, we set them up with a proper troubleshooting framework so they actually learn how to learn. Yeah. Don't just ask the assessors to, like, do the thing for you, because if you do, they're just going to come back and be like, follow the troubleshooting process. Like, you're not learning anything. We want you to be successful practitioners. So you need to learn how to problem solve, how to critically think, how to appraise, how to break down processes and work out where you're going wrong is a really important thing, right? It's like back in the day, you're doing maths in high school, it's grade 11 maths, grade 12 maths, and you get 10 points for the answer. And it's because you got to show you're working. The troubleshooting process is about showing the working. This is what I was looking at. This is what, like, guys, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I've looked at. This is my understanding of it. When I apply it, this is what I'm getting. This is what I'm thinking I'm doing wrong, but I'm open to your feedback. Then the assessors can go through it and give them a really personalized response and be like, all right, these first 3 steps were awesome. And at step 4, you zigged instead of zagging. And if you'd zagged, you'd come up with this. Does that make sense? And they can send them a Loom video back and interact with them, set up the odd Zoom call and all that kind of stuff to help walk them through these processes. So that way people are actually understanding of it. Now, that's a really good answer and you're getting the answer that you want and you're actually learning if you follow that process. Whereas if it's like, what does this mean? And that's it. It's like, like, well, the assessor's like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, yeah. It really limits their ability to give them a personalized learning experience at that point. And the assessors are there to be like, because they're bought into the vision and they're like, hey, we see, because we're experiencing it, the success of the sports nutritionist model, and we want to see more people succeed in this. And so they want to give them a really good learning experience. But the prerequisite is, similar to what you would experience with like client check-ins and stuff. It's like, the more you can break it down, the more you can go through the process, the more you can sort of, provide specifics, the more we can personalize the feedback, the response, and your learning experience from there.
Yep, 100%. And I think with like, you saying that, it also comes down to, again, like this is like, if you guys are thinking, can I make this my career or not? You've got that part-time to try it and see how you go, still make a good amount of coin, and then if you do want it to be a career, it can be. But if you're serious about this, like, again, yeah, studying can be boring, but if it's something that you're like, I want to make this my career, you do it, and it's like, then you go and try it out. But at least this way you're able to pay off a course. It's not going to take you how many years does it take to do dietetics?
Oh mate, 4.5. It's
okay, 4.5.
It's minimum bachelor's and honors or masters.
Okay, so 4.5 years. Like, it's taking you that long to figure out if you want to do it. Then you have to go and try and get clients after that, and they have a higher dropout rate within the first year, correct?
Yeah, 70 to 80% every 12 months.
So if you're risk averse and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to make nutrition my thing, well, then guess what? SNA is probably the most risk averse fucking thing you could also do for that.
That's it. And you're not picking something that's not going to cover you. Like, The thing is, like, we had to, and I know this, we had to fight so hard to have the certificate and a provisional registration still get recognized for insurance. So I know, like, I can say hand on heart, every other cert thing that's like a quick course or anything like that, it's not giving you that cover. I've seen their product disclosures. I've seen all the shit. It's not what it says it is. Okay? Like, we were the first to do it. It started, like 8-9 years ago now. And it was crap back then compared to what it is now. And it's evolved every single year based on feedback that we get from people that go through it, based on feedback from the insurers, the underwriters, our insurers, our underwriters who link us up with all those things and all that kind of stuff as well. Since we formed an advisory board, an academic advisory board, based on the academic advisory board's feedback, based on technical advisors that we get to go through it. Like, this thing has evolved constantly. But the thing is, it's always come from the place of legitimately covering people's butts. And so the problem is with these other ones, say you're paying $6,000 and you're going to go study at VAST. Reality is like, you're not covered for this. Like, you've taken a risk-averse strategy, like cheaper strategy than studying a degree, when you're actually not getting anything that's actually going to cover you. And the thing is, and unfortunately, like, when I talk to people who've done this thing, ironically, when we're talking to people who've done degrees, they're like, they've spent 40, 50 grand and they're like, mate, it sucks. They didn't tell us. Thank you so much for telling us. All right, I'll be enrolling in the next 6 months. What do you recommend I do with my business? I'm sort of doing it at the moment. I'm like, just stick with the guides. I'll send you through a recommendation of how to actually do that with the guides. Give them a 10-minute video on how to like stick within the guides. So that way they're not exposed for the period until they study. So that way they don't get stung with these retrospective covers, which could be like, say if you're practicing for, 4 years before studying, the whole time, and then you study with us and you think you're going to get covered. The insurers will look at it and they'll look into you and they'll either say, we're not going to cover you for that. We're not going to retrospectively cover you, or we will, but it's going to be 10 grand, 20 grand, and they smack you. So like, you don't want that either. So like, we'll help the grads and they do it. They enroll 6 months later. Sweet. Students, similar thing. They're good to go. When we speak to these people from like, from like a VAST, from like a Clean Health, from like a, what are the others? Just trying to think. Nutrition Pro, they've done an IF10 thing, whatever it is. Half the time they get so butthurt. And I'm just like, look, all you got to do is look at your insurance, like actually look at it. I understand that people are illiterate when it comes to this. So that's why we try and give them the information. But half the time they're like, no, I am. They tell me that I am and it's fine and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, look, I'm sorry, but like, I don't want you to have to be the example that I talk about on the next podcast that I do in 6 months' time, because it turns out that you weren't. Because all that's going to, like, what's going to happen, right? If a claim happens, I'm going to be proven right. Like, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't really like provide advice around nutrition, not nutrition. I can't provide advice around insurance and stuff like that. But what I can say is, which is what, and it's like a bit of a common sense thing when you think about it, listen to any insurance ad on the radio or TV. It always says, limits to cover apply, check the product disclosure statement for terms and conditions about the product and limits of cover. It always says that at the end. All the insurers are all talking about buyer beware and stuff. And it's like, you just don't want to have to be the person. You don't want to be that case study that I talk about in 6 to 12 months time, where it's like, hey, this person, we spoke to them, blah, 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 this happened. And it may not have happened with the short courses yet, but it's happened with certain sports. Like it happened in weight cutting. It's happened in bodybuilding recently, where we're like, hey, you start doing this shit, it's pretty dumb. Don't do it. People like, it won't happen to me. It's happened. Yeah, it's happened in weight cutting a couple of times this year where people have been stung. One person settled for $200K and their insurance didn't cover them.
I ain't got $200K to give away. I don't think you do either. So it's like, fuck, man.
Yeah, clinical nutritionists doing weight cuts for fighters.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So like, this is the thing. Like, you just don't want to be one of these things and like one of these statistics. So I think, you know, that's sort of a big thing. And I think it's like, unfortunately, no one else is out there being like, oh, you know, this is what to look for. This is what you need to be aware of. And then no one else is out there being like, this is what our professional members are doing. And like, the thing is, I don't care where you study, like go do a degree, go spend 50 grand, do a degree, and then come register with us. Like, I don't really care, but you've got to be thinking in your mind, if you're going to be doing this, I'm going to either do a degree or I'm going to come through SNA at the moment because, and if you do a degree, you don't have to register with us. You can register with the Nutrition Society of Australia. If you're a dietitian, you can go with the Dietitians Association of Australia. We have a lot of duly registered DAA members and SNA members now, probably about 15, 20. So like, you can be with a bunch of different like associations. It doesn't really matter, but either go to a degree and get legitimate cover or study with us if you want to, I guess, a low barrier to entry sort of experience with this.
Mate, I feel like that's still sort of just a mic drop and be like, look, that's everything people need to know, honestly. Like, we've covered so much here, and I think at the end of the day, it's like, you know, for those of you, because the people who are listening to this, you've either, one, done it, or you're thinking about it. There's no, like, what else are you going to do? You're going to keep thinking about it, or you're actually going to be like, you know what? Like, what other people come on the podcast and we'll talk about, you know, where's vast people who are reaching out. Like, you are in the community, you are doing things, you are
the other one, relationships, Fitness Academy or whatever it's called, and they misquoted me, bro, to like sell their programs. Remember at the conference? This is the other one. So this company's out there saying like, well, women need to be having personalized nutrition. We need to learn about like follicular phase and blah, 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 luteal phase. Mate, don't worry about any of that shit. A human being is a human being. Yes, women need specific considerations, but the reality is it's more about the individual than it is about women in general. And if you are not learning applied exercise physiology, applied nutrition physiology, basic biochemistry, then applying any of those phases for the individual is going to be pointless because you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing and what's happening as a result of it. You're just like regurgitating rote learned systems to then try and sound smart, which is basically pseudoscience when it comes to it. But basically, like, this company's come out recently and they're pumping really well because it's like, you know, it's this women's movement. Like, two things on this, right? It's owned by a guy.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
But it's like designed by women for women. It's owned by a guy. So if you're all about like, hey, we need to like represent women in the fitness industry better, it's owned by a guy. They're not really transparent about that. That's one thing. And then they've never reached out. Like, two, they never reached out to us to be like, how can we work together? By the way, guys, if you apologize for misquoting me and a bit more transparent about your owner and your niches and who, like, and then like also sort out your who delivers stuff, because the people that deliver the like the education, they've only got like their own certificate graduates. Not like, these aren't like degree qualified people delivering the content or anything like that. This is like, you know, this like basic cert to have, then delivered by the basic cert, which, you know, opens up its own can of worms from there. But anyway, they said, based on my presentation at the conference in 2019, that there's 20,000 claims a year in Australia.
That's what they said. You said.
That's what they quoted me as that. I was like on their page for like enrolling in their nutrition program. So it's like there's heaps of claims. That's why it's important to be legally recognized and all this kind of shit. And and it's just a complete misquote. So the quote is, and it's on our YouTube page, you can hear it. It's like there's 1,000 claims a month in the fitness industry. About 10% of these are in nutrition. So 1,000, 10% of 1,000 is 100. And I think I even said slightly under 10% or less than 10%, right? So anyway, it's about 1,200 a year, not 20,000. So it's about 1/20th of what I've been misquoted as saying. So it's like, look, having insurance matters and stuff, and like those are the claim stats, but it's not as doom and gloom as what they're saying. Yeah, so that's another one.
Oh man, far out. And again, like things like this, like you said, you know, the fitness industry in itself is a can of worms. But the way, like, you know, the community you built up, the people who are going through your course, like these are people who, as you would assume, like you'd hope so. They're like, a lot of people are ethical, doing the right things because they are serious about taking that. Like they want to make this their career at the end of the day, you know?
Exactly, man. And like, it's great. And this is the thing, like, we've got more and more unis reaching out, wanting to work with us, right? So we're setting stuff up with Griffith at the moment. We're setting stuff up with CQU. We're setting stuff up with Torrens. We're setting stuff up with Deakin, obviously, like through Zoya and stuff. We're exploring that. The head of Griffith's national practical placement for exercise and nutrition sciences for the whole of that is like, she did it. And she was like, we need to find a way to get this to second, third, and fourth years because it's going to set them up to succeed. And the crazy thing is we have people doing dual degrees in exercise and nutrition science, like 2 bachelors, and they don't get to register with anyone. But looking at the credit, like with the subjects, they could probably do 3 or 4 subjects with you and then they'd be able to register. And we were like, yep, that's it. So we're working on ways to like integrate it for that. And these are like practitioners that are like saying, hey, this is going to, like, this sets you up for success. So it's funny, like we're getting some really good stuff, but then every now and then we get unis who like look at it and then like criticize the shit out of it as well. So like, I don't want to just like shit on the short courses and hobby courses, but you know, like we had a South Australian uni recently being like, our sports nutrition subject is like way better than it. It's like, mate, we have like 20 something master and PhD specialist lecturers who are the who's who on the subject matter in the world, presenting half the lecture content in this program. And there's over 100 videos on this. This program is a 400-hour program. A university subject is on average, I think it's 100 hours because like, you know, like we understand the mechanics going into higher ed and what the minimum hours per like bachelor subject. So how is a 100-hour subject taught by just random lecturers in an area compare to a 400-hour program with Dr. Eric Helms, Dr. Eric Trexler, Dr. Gabby Fundaro, Dr. Zoya, Dr. Reed Reel, like the who's who, Dr. Sean Arendt, head of University of South Carolina and dean of their exercise sciences, like the who's who of sports and performance nutrition in the world. Like, it doesn't make sense. So to me, I'm like, well, these academics haven't even looked at it. It's hilarious. Yep. Like, it's the most unevidence-based approach.
And again, like, where else are we seeing, like, you know, unless you're going to somewhere, you know, like a actual university study, where else are you seeing this in other of those courses that you can just do online? It's not happening, you know? There's not that, they haven't got those top tier lecturers. No, they're not associated with any type of university or anything like that. It's like, you guys are out there actually, you know, this is what governing bodies and things will be referring, not governing bodies, sorry. Like, you know, university and things will be referring to you guys as like the course to do to be educated. So, you know, if you are someone who's sitting on the fence, like, this is, there's no question about it, you know?
And the thing is with the unis that we're working with, like ideally it's not, ideally long-term, like in the next 4 or 5 years, and this is how long it takes for unis to sort of like change some of their programs. But ideally it's like, you can go to these unis and do these programs and you don't have to fill any subjects up with us because we're working with them now to tweak their curriculum so that all of our 12 subjects that we look at from like an insurance minimum requirement perspective are included in their degrees. So that way, instead of it being like 5 to 10 people a year that just register with us who have graduated these like very niche programs, it's like 100 people a year, 200 people a year coming from these unis. And then like we're saying, hey, go and get these degrees from these places or study with us, whatever you want to do. But you're going to get these same 12 subjects like in either with us or with them. And it doesn't really matter. And it's the same way that we're saying with these other institutes in New Zealand, in America and stuff, where like the thing is, you don't have to study with us. You can go with us, those institutes, and then eventually you'll be able to go with these unis and you can just pick. Like, we don't care. We're just looking to have a really good minimum standard of education and then experience and professional conduct in the industry.
I don't know what else to say, mate. I think you're fucking
done.
Like, I think we're done, eh? Like, honestly, I don't know what else I can, like, we can't really say much else. Like, again,
nah, this is the reference point for this point in time. We'll come back and do this every, I don't know, 18 months or so.
100%. But in saying that, so it is now, this is going to come out on the 29th of September. So next week, right? Which means there's going to be 3 weeks until your final intake this year if people are interested. Is that correct? 3 weeks?
29th September, 2 weeks. This is our final full intake, right? So October's our last intake, and then December we have an intake. But we have 100 places open for every intake in our 4 main intakes. December has 30. Okay. So the payment plans that we normally offer aren't available in December. There is a strict application process. You actually, when you click enroll and stuff, it'll take a deposit. That deposit is refundable if you don't get accepted. And we actually we look for specific people. There's only it's very, very specific stuff because we're on our skeleton staff over Christmas. So we need people who can be relatively self-sufficient and they have some experience. So if you're brand new to study, if you're a fitness professional who's just looking to get through super, super quick, if you're a uni student who's looking to do the minimum amount of work, you will get rejected from December. So look at October. And like my suggestion would be, if you're thinking, December or January, but you want to be practicing by early next year, your only option is October.
And just in saying that, if they do October, right, then they can start to begin to practice. Like, that's where do most people want to start up on their fitness journey?
New Year's.
Yep, exactly.
And this is the thing, like, that's why the question we always ask them is, what's your intended time frame to practice? And I would say for the majority of people who listen to this and just in general who are inquiring lately, like we've been getting like 70 inquiries a week lately, and it always increases as we get closer to an intake. The thing is like, you'll still be a student come the new year, but we pay extra to get the students covered with insurance. So you're able to do it and you can start generating some money, working with some clients, ready for the new year. So that way, when you graduate, you can increase the price and you can take out your reg on insurance and be good to go. Whereas if you're one of those people for December and it's probably not going to work for you based on our strict criteria, that's completely cool. There's a January intake. The thing with the January intake is you're not practicing till June, July, potentially August if you have to submit some resubmissions, right? Just on the resubmission note for anyone listening, we include complimentary submissions, right? So if you're hearing me talk about failure and all that stuff before, you get a complimentary resubmission with every single assignment that we do. So we'll give you feedback. So we set this stuff up so that way your perspective on how you think you know things is being challenged based on actually applying the evidence in real world scenarios. And so the average person would resubmit 3 out of the 7 case studies anyway, and that's fine. And they learn more as a result from it. You don't have to pay more for your initial resubmissions. Then if you fail it after that, you're not failing the whole program. You've got the ability to like pay the assessor a couple $100 for their time to then additionally mark you outside of that. Otherwise, so that way you're not screwed. And like a uni program, if you fail the subject, then you got to pay, the $1,500, $2,000 for that subject again to then resit it or anything like that. So there are more flexible and considerate options, for people, given that stuff. I don't want them to be sort of scared off by, my talks of sort of like failure on first attempt. Everyone gets 2 attempts.
Okay, good. And again, like, I think you guys, and like even though you have a reattempt, like because what they teach you in the course about critical thinking, about rethinking, about problem solving, you don't be scared that, again, you're going to continuously fail, because that's what the education is there for. And that's why they're teaching you how to learn and how to critically think, so you can make the right decisions and think before you answer, instead of just trying to rush it through because it's another, fun little course that you're going to tick off.
Exactly, man. And that's the thing. It's like, we can set it up and make it easier, but you'd fail in practice.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that. We want you to succeed. 5% of people that come through are just going to do it because they're learning, for their own personal interest, and that's fine. And for those people, you don't have to register with us. You don't have to insure none of that stuff. And you can just come through and you just do it for yourself. You just let us know, and we're there for you. But for 95% of people, you have an intention to practice, and our job is to set you up. Our job is not to sell courses. Our job is not to have a million people enrolling in passing courses. Our job is to set you up to actually be successful practitioners long term.
Yeah. And I think with thinking about that, I guess we got to tell people where to go too. Like, they're going to go to your website, or they go on your Instagram, and then go to your website.
Go to our website. Like, if you sportsnutritionassociation.com, you can just click the enrollment link from there. It's really simple. You click enroll, you can do that. You can enroll via our Instagram page. You see our link tree and say enroll if you want to enroll, and you're like, yep, I'm ready to go. For a lot of people though, it is a big commitment. And so, like, the crazy thing is, in an intake, we'll have 20 to 30 people who enroll without even talking to us, which to us is pretty crazy. And it's purely just through reputation, the product being really good, and really good word of mouth. And I'm super appreciative for that. But ideally, what's that?
Mackenzie just told me. I was like, okay, sweet, sign up. Like, I didn't talk to anyone.
Exactly right. From our end, it'd be great if we could have a quick 15-minute chat to understand your motivations when you're looking to graduate, when you're looking to start practicing, why you're looking to do that, so that way we can better support your learning experience. So if you want to chat with one of the career advisors, and then what tends to happen is, once you enroll after that chat, they give all of those notes to the assessor, and the assessor who's going to be assessing you knows that they're going to be working with you weeks before the intake starts anyway, and they're prepping for it. So ideally, we're having a 10-15-minute chat to work that stuff out, and that way we can personally, personalize how we support you. So you can always just fill out an inquiry form on the website and request a career advisor call, and we'd be more than happy to do that as well.
Legend. All right, sportsnutritionassociation.com, and they can sort it all out from there.
Yep. And then we've got obviously our regional sites as well, sportsnutrition.org.au, sportsnutrition.nz, but it all funnels back to the association for your enrollment.
Sweet. And obviously on Instagram too, Sports Nutrition Association.
Yep, that's it, man.
Legend. Dude, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for talking about it. And I think, again, this is a good reference point going forwards for anyone.
That's it, man. And we'll just update it every 12 to 18 months, depending on, hey, like, honestly, team, give us feedback if there's more frequently asked questions. And this is just a painful rant that you're listening to, that you've heard of me ranting about some random crap, and it could have been better structured. Give us the feedback. We'll tweak it and we'll make it better, and we'll come back, in a few months' time if it's crap. Otherwise, if it slaps and it hits well, awesome. We'll probably still update it in 12 to 18 months, because I'm sure there's going to be some more contemporary shit we got to address.
If it's crap or if it slaps, that's going to be the feedback I want to hear from people. Fucking hell.
I've been watching your stories too much, man. So I'm just like, I'm applying the Tyson lingo.
That's it, mate. All right, dude. I'll get this out ASAP so people can fucking start sorting their life out, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Dude, I don't even know how to. Yeah, I think I stopped it.
No, it's still recording. I can see.
How the fuck do I turn it off? Obviously, I should leave this.
We need to keep this. We need to keep this at the end. Yes.
Oh man, what do I do? I'm legit trying to figure this out.
I think it's the 3 dots, right?
Yeah, that's what I clicked on. It didn't start. It just says recording. Stop recording. There, figured it out. See you guys.